shit. How's that? Not a very, not very good, not a very good cough. Not a very good cough at all. Um, you're right. Oh, I don't look very good. Whoa, shit. Oh, shit. Should we do it like that? Not better. Um, um, just have a bit of a cough. Jeez. Oh my goodness. Hmm. Whatever do we need to do to adjust how we look? Because this is not. This is you look. Hmm. Well. Wow. Okay. We gotta be better. We will. We will. Okay. Let's just restart. Okay. Jeez, I look big as fuck. Under the rocks, we found two octopi, both Octopus binoculatus. They are very clear and active in escaping, and when finally captured, they grip the hand and arm with their little suckers, and if left for any length of time, will cause small blood blisters, or rather, what in another field would be called monkey bites. Under the water, and apparently below the ordinary tidal range, were brilliant yellow geodia, and many examples of other sponge of magnificent shape and size and color. This last, this last was a reddish pink and stood high and vase-like, some of them several feet in diameter. Most of them were perfectly regular in shape. We took a number of them, dried some out of formaldehyde, preserved others. The algal zonation on this slope was sharp and apparent. A sargassum was submerged 2 or 3 feet at ebb. The rocks in the intertidal were perfectly smooth and bare out below the Segersium johnstoni in deeper water, and was a great zone of flat frond-like alga. Uh, Pandina Valeriae. The wind rippled the surface badly, but on an occasional lull came we could look down into the deeper water. It did not seem rich in life except for algae, but then we were unable to turn over the rocks at the bottom. While we collected, our fishermen rowed aimlessly about, and in our suspicious state of mind seemed to be more anxious to appear to be fishing than actually to be fishing. We have a little doubt that we were entirely wrong about this, but the place beneath suspicion, and no other place had been like that. We went back on board and deposited our catch, then took the skiff to the sand flats on the northern side of the bay. It was hard. It was a hard, compact mud sand with a long, shallow beach, and it was heavy and difficult to dig into. We took we took there a number of chione and tavila clams and one poor half-dead amphibious. Again, the tide was not low enough to reach the real habitat of amphibious, but if there was one stray in the high area, there must be many to be taken on an extremely low tide. We found a number of long, turbinated snails carrying uh, commensal, commensal anemones on their shell. On this flat, there were a number of embedded small rocks. Um, well, there were rock oysters on them, and large clusters of these rocks with pea crabs commensal in the tubes. One fair-sized octopus had his home under one of these rocks. The small stones must have been havens in the shifting sands for many animals. The fine mud like sand would make locomotion difficult, except for specially equipped animals and other clustered to the rocks where there were footing and security. Tide began to flow rapidly, and the winds came up, and we went back to the Western Flyer. When we were on board, we saw a ship entering the harbor, a big green sailing schooner with her sails furled, coming in under power. She did not approach us, but came to anchorage about as far as us as she could. She was one of those incredible Mexican Gulf crafts. It is impossible to say how they float at all, and once floating, how to navigate. The seams are sprung, the paint blistered away, ironwork rusted to lace, decks warped and sagging, and it is said so dirty and bebugged that if the cockroaches were not fed, or in any way frustrated or insulted, they would mutiny and take the ship. And, as one Mexican sailor said, probably sail her better than the master. That is funny. What the frick? I, yeah, that's a sure. Mm, Once the anchor of this schooner was down, there was no further sign of life on her, and there was no sign of life from the buildings ashore either. The little plane sat in its runway, and the houses seemed vacant. We had been asked how long we would remain, and had said until the next morning. Now we felt, curiously enough, that we were interfering with something, some kind of activity, that we were interfering with something, that some sort kind of activity would start only when we left. Again, we were probably all wrong, but it is strange that every one of us caught a sinister feeling from the place. Unless the wind was up or the anchorage was treacherous, we ordinarily kept a no anchor watch. But this night, the boys uh, got up a number of times and were restless. As with the werewolf, we were probably believing our own imaginations. For a short time in the evening there were lights ashore, and then they went out. And the schooner did not even pull up a riding light, but lay completely dark on the water. Oh, next day. My goodness. No. Okay. Oh my gosh. This might have to be a short one. My mouth is so dry. April 2nd. We started early and moved out through the channel to the Gulf. It was not long before we could make out Sail Rock far ahead, with Guardian Angel Island to the east of it. Sail Rocks looks exactly like a tall macaroni sail in the distance. It is a high, slender pyramid so whitened with guano that it catches the light and can be seen for a great distance. Huh? Because of its extreme visibility, it must have a sailing point for it must be a sailing point for many mariners. It is more than 160 feet high, rises to a sharp point, and there is deep water close into it. With lots of time, we would have collected at its base, but we were aimed at Puerto Refugio. 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 Dang. At the upper end of Guardian Angel Island. We did take some of our usual moving pictures of Sail Rock, and they were even a little worse than usual, for there was laundry drying on the string, and the camera was not was set up behind it. My goodness. When developed, the film showed only an occasional glimpse of Sail Rock, but a very lively set of sense a very lively set of senses of a pair of tiny blue and white shorts snapping in the breeze. It is impossible to say how bad our moving pictures were. One film laboratory has been eager to have a copy of the film, for it embodies in a few thousand feet. So they say every single thing one should not do with a camera. Huh. As an object as an object lesson to beginners, they think it would be valuable if we took close-ups of animals. Someone was in the light, the aperture was always too wide or too narrow. We made little jerky pan shots back and forth. We have one of the finest sequences of unadorned sky pictures in existence, but when there was something to take about which we didn't care, we got it perfectly. We dare say there is not in the world more spirited and beautiful pictures of a pair of blue and white shorts than that while we took passing Sail Rock. Hmm, cool. Bruh. Hmm, okay. The long snake like coast of Guardian Angel lay to the east of us, a desolate and fascinating coast. It is 42 miles long, 10 miles wide, and in some places waterless and uninhabited. It is said to be crawling with rattlesnakes and iguanas, and a persistent rumor of gold comes from it. Few people have explored it, or even gone more than a few steps from the shore, but its fine harbor, Refugio, indicates by its name that many ships have clung to it for storms and have found safety there. Clavergio calls the island both Angel de la Guardia and Angel Custodio, and we like this latter name much better. Hmm. Oh my goodness, yeah, it's gonna have to be this page and then I'm done. I have my humidifier over here. Oh my goodness. It's like 4 pages, dude. Yeah. My feet, I feel like my feet have been getting really swollen lately. I don't know, like pretty often. Yeah. The difficulties of exploration of the island might be very great, but there is a drawing power about its very forbidding aspect, a golden fleece, and the inevitable dragon, in this case rattlesnakes, to guard it. The mountains, which are the backbone of the island, rise to more than 4,000 feet in some places, sullen and desolate at the tops, but with heavy brush on its skirts. Approaching the northern tip, we encountered a deep swell and a fresh breeze. The tides are very large here, 14 feet during our stay, that that is not extreme tides at all. It is probable that a 17-foot tide would not be unusual here. Puerto Refugio is really two harbors connected by a narrow channel. It is safe, deep anchorage, the only danger lying in the strength and the speed of the tidal current, which puts a strain on the anchor tackle. It is so strong indeed that we are not able to get weight nets at the bottom. They are pulled out sideways in the water and swivel the current of weed and small animals, so the catch was fairly worthwhile, anyways. Holy moly. Dude, this is like the cinnamon challenge. I'm like Lozelle. Hmm. Okay. We took our time getting firm anchorage, and about 3:30 p.m. rowed ashore toward a sand and roll beach on the southeastern part of the bay. Here the beach was piled with debris, the huge vertebrae of whales scattered about the piles of broken weed and skeletons of fishes and birds on top of some low brushes which edged the beach. There were great nets, 3 to 4 feet in diameter, pelican nests perhaps, for there were pieces of fish bone in them, but all the nests were deserted. Whether they were old or it was just out of season, we don't know. We are so used to finding. Um, oh, shoot. Hold on. Let's see where we were. We are so used to finding on the beaches evidence of man that is strange and lonely and frightening to find no single thing that man has touched or used. Tiny and Sparky made a small excursion inland, not over several hundred yards from the shore, and they came back subdued and quiet. They had not seen any rattlesnakes, nor did they want to. The beach was alive with hoppers feeding on the refuse, but the coarse sand was not productive of other animal life. The tide was falling, and we walked around a rocky point to the westward and came where the collecting was very rich. Okay, yeah, that was like only a couple pages, but whatevs. Yeah, okay. See ya. Um, See ya.